Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Theuma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success.
Welcome back to the SaaS Revolution Show. I am your host, Alex Theuma, founder, CEO of SaaStock, also general partner at Back Future Ventures. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by somebody who's speaking at SaaStock USA. We'll actually be in Austin together next week on the 13th and 14th of May. And I'm delighted to be joined by Neha Sampat, who is the CEO and founder at Contentstack. How are you doing?
Hey, Alex. I'm great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Are you currently in Austin today?
I am in Austin. It is pouring rain.
Oh,
Hopefully we
really?
get better weather next week.
Oh, fingers crossed. I always assume naively, because I mean, I've been to Austin many times and it does have a lot of good weather, a lot of good hot weather, but that it will always be the case. But I know when it rains, it really does rain. And freakishly or maybe it's not, you can tell me, but end of February, I came to Austin, came to do some meetings, filming, and I just packed shorts and a t-shirt and was just thinking, it's going to be glorious. And this is going to be the first time I see sunshine for about 6 months, because I'm in the UK and the winters are long. And pretty much the morning that I woke up in the hotel in Austin, it was almost snowing. It was -5, and I was shocked.
Probably a little disappointed, huh?
I was a little disappointed. Yeah.
We've had 90-degree weather in February and we've had below zero in February, so it's very unpredictable.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed. I mean, we're probably close enough now that we'll be able to see an accurate forecast for the weather next week, and feeling positive that it's going to be nice and sunny
Yes.
in Austin, and we can enjoy the splendor that the city has to offer. Neha, we always start with a question to try and get to know our guests a little bit better. So we won't buck the trend. We'd love to know, who is Neha Sampat?
Well, I am an entrepreneur, probably first, born in the US, Indian American, one of the few females that have gone through the journey I've gone through. So I love to be able to tell that story and bring other women along for the journey as well. Generally, I've built companies and I love to do that. And when I do it, I feel excited and it gets me up in the morning. And it's usually about seeing people change as they participate in the growth of a company or in making changes inside their organizations, which typically happens with their customers and partners. So that's what gets me excited. That's kind of what gets me going. Outside of that, I am a family person. I don't have my own children, but I've got lots of nephews and a niece who I love dearly, and siblings that I love. And so try to spend a lot of time with friends and family when my CEO world avails that.
And you mentioned entrepreneur first, and obviously CEO of Contentstack at the moment. So is this the first business? Or have you been the CEO or founder of previous businesses?
Yes, I've been the founder of many businesses, some which have failed miserably and some which have had some success. And I've been essentially building businesses from pretend when I was a child all the way through my first profitable company, which was when I was in elementary school, all the way through trying things throughout high school and college, and really built my first kind of major enterprise business back in 2000. And I guess it was around the beginning of the time of this journey. So I started this journey 2007. It's kind of continued on to multiple iterations. We built a product called Built.io, which was an integration platform. If you know the company Zapier or
Mm-hmm.
MuleSoft, it was sort of like right in the center of that, an integration platform as a service. Sold that in 2018 to Software AG and have since been on the journey with Contentstack. So the last 7.5 to 8 years has been really focused on building up Contentstack. So just a variety of companies, from fan clubs to local Olympics to a PR agency that I ran for a while, to enterprise software and SaaS companies.
So certainly an entrepreneur first and an entrepreneur at heart. You mentioned as a child, like feeling entrepreneurial, like starting some businesses or ideas. Can you share, like, was this like the fan clubs that you mentioned, or was this something else? And then maybe second part to that, do you think all entrepreneurs kind of have this like within them when they're a child, like thinking about these sort of different ideas and thinking about business in that way?
I think there's a thing that I like to call ERA, which is exposure, relatability, and access. And for me, as a child, I was exposed to entrepreneurship. My father ran a lot of businesses, none of which really saw the light of day in the long run. But I loved watching him do it. I loved participating and helping. And so it was kind of just something I was exposed to, that you can start something and you can try to build it, and I loved that. I always did. And so as a kid, when other kids were playing house, I would grab my friends and we would play factory, or we would play fashion design, or whatever, and we pretended to get phone calls and orders and place those orders and go ship them out. And that evolved into a fan club in junior high for the New Kids on the Block. I said it out loud. And we actually like placed some ads in some teen bopper type magazines, and we got checks in the mail or cash in the mail to build little fan items, promotional items for people. And so I'm sure we were breaking some trademark law at the time, didn't really realize it, but it turned into a business that yielded some profits. And then we turned that into Olympics in our neighborhood. And I did this with a friend throughout my childhood. I've always had like a partner in crime as I've gone along the journey, and have always enjoyed the process of building with someone.
Amazing. Maybe this is a first on the SaaS Revolution show after 10 years, but have to come clean and also say that I liked New Kids on the Block. I had an older sister. She's 3 years older than me. And when I was younger, the music that I liked was what she liked and what she was playing. And she was a big New Kids on the Block fan. So
Did you have a favorite?
I think I always liked Danny. I think it was for some reason. He was
Yeah,
the kind of the more.
I was a Joe McIntyre girl.
Yeah, I can't remember all their names now, but they're certainly recognizable. But I do remember that era. You mentioned, so it was Build.io was the company that you had an successful exit from, right? Was
That's right.
that like a life-changing exit that meant that you didn't really need to start again? And if so, why did you, I guess being an entrepreneur at heart maybe, but why did you decide to, continue to build, continue to be a CEO? Because it is hard, right? I'm not sure everybody has multiple businesses in them, like some do, but maybe for some, maybe one is enough.
Yeah, it takes a really weird personality to do this to yourself, I would say. But it's a really good question. I started a software consulting company in 2007, fully bootstrapped, alongside my co-founder, who I happen to be married to. And one of us decided that we would quit our job and start the business, and the other would pay the bills. And so I had taken a full-time job at another enterprise software company, doing something really cool, building out their e-commerce platform, which I loved. And my paycheck was funding the beginning of our consulting company. And within 3.5 years, I left to run the consulting company alongside my husband, who was running all of the tech. And in doing that, we took a lot of risks, and we pulled back a lot on our costs. And, we took mortgages out on our home to pay bills. And it was stressful, but like we were all in. And so fast forward about 10 years into the journey, to have the opportunity to have some liquidity really just gave us the freedom to have like our bases covered, to take care of some of the people that had been on the journey with us as well. We had fully bootstrapped, so there were no investors or bankers or anyone else involved. And that gave us enough to say, okay, now our bases are covered. We've taken care of our families, we've taken care of our employees that have been super loyal to us in the journey. Let's go build something bigger. And that was just like a really important milestone, because it did give you that freedom to just focus on growth, and like actually going out and getting some investor dollars into the business and doing it differently than we had before.
And Contentstack, am I right? So it's over 7 years old now?
Yes, we started officially when we spun out of the consulting company January 1st of 2018. So yeah, we're going on 8 years.
And can you paint a picture for the audience, maybe share some data about the company to bring it to life a little bit?
Sure, yes. So when we spun out, we were about 25 employees and 25 customers. and a little bit of cash in the bank and fully bootstrapped. Fast forward to where we are today, we're approximately 600 employees worldwide in 15 countries. We've got hundreds of customers, many of which are Fortune 1000 customers. We've raised 169 million of venture capital over the years, and really just focused on high growth and helping brands to revolutionize how they're doing digital in their worlds.
You've built an amazing business there, and congrats. And having
Thank
been
you.
a bootstrapper and also having raised venture capital, I know that I guess both different have some similarities, but is there anything that you kind of prefer? Would you have been able to build the business also that you have with Contentstack today without going down the VC route?
I think it would have been tough to grow as fast. And when people say, what do you regret about the journey? I sometimes wish we would have raised sooner because we were limited in what we could do from a go-to-market perspective and a hiring perspective. But I would say that it builds a discipline in building something that's very sustainable. And so having that discipline going into deploying capital in a very responsible way has been an important part of who we are and how we scale the company. And so I think it was like a unique combination of having that experience that we had in how do you do things in a really scrappy way, but then when you want to turn the dials up because something's working, having the resources to do so. And so I don't know if I would necessarily change that stacking of experience. I might change the timing of it.
And you mentioned sort of earlier a little bit around your journey as a female entrepreneur and around that. And I know I think you give back to the community and also supporting that, trying to get more I think women in tech and in more senior kind of positions. What has that been like? Your sort of journey there in terms of what you can share and maybe any of the challenges, but how you've kind of like overcome any of that and how you're helping and how you view the state of the market, in tech and with women in tech.
Yeah, it's a weird time right now because it's somehow DEI has become a bad word and it really shouldn't have ever been looked at that way. I always look at the balance of DEI and NEI as important. They're not different and they're not distinctive. They coexist, and you don't hire people just because they are of a certain background. You widen the pool of people that you choose to hire from, and that's the misnomer around DEI versus MEI. In terms of like, go back to that thing I mentioned earlier, era. So exposure is like knowing that entrepreneurship exists or certain careers exist. The other two are relatability and access. And relatability is being able to see other people that you can relate to, that look like you, that you would look up to, going down a path and understanding that that path might also be available to you. And so seeing other women in positions of power, in positions of authority, in board roles, in C-suite roles, on the stage, being able to speak to others, that hopefully inspires people that haven't really seen themselves in that yet. And so that's the relatability piece, which I try to put myself out there, but also encourage a lot of other women to get out there and speak at events like SaaStock USA. And then the access piece is about education, funds, and really mentorship and network. A lot of people that have come up in the traditional path of building SaaS companies have come out of like, traditional Silicon Valley, Stanford grads, and people that have been around the community that understand how venture capital works, that have friends, neighbors, parents, cousins that can help read a term sheet and help them determine how to negotiate it. A lot of people don't have that. And so the access is being able to provide that kind of access to people that might not otherwise get access to it. And so that's where I've focused, is those three sort of pillars. And it's been through speaking at events, it's been mentorship, it's been trying to bring other women along for the journey. And when I see women who are successful, highlighting them. I'm a part owner of Austin Woman Magazine. I'll make sure you get a copy when you come into
Yes,
town
please.
next
Yeah.
week. And in that magazine, we highlight small business owners, but also really successful women that have rise the ranks in their organizations or built companies that are really interesting to know about. We have a women's award program, which is actually happening this week, where we have several categories where we identify a winner and recognize them in a room full of 500 people. And that's something that stays with them and lifts them up. And hopefully they pass that on to others. And so just several ways of giving back and like just recognizing that we all deserve the opportunity to do our best work and have our best careers. And so I try to extend the ladder down and sideways and up wherever it makes sense.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you doing that and paying it forward, and then also by doing things like speaking at SaaStock USA and being on the stage there. I think this is our 10th year of SaaStock, and I always feel like we try, but never quite do enough. And it's also quite hard to measure. We partner with organizations like Wednesday Women, and we try and get as many women entrepreneurs and CEOs and C-suite on stage as possible. But it's very hard to kind of measure the impact there. But hopefully we're making some impacts, and I'm sure you are as well by both coming on the podcast and speaking at events like SaaStock. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I really
Thank you.
appreciate that you guys put that effort in too, and I know Wednesday Women has been a big player in bringing women to the table at SaaStock, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, no, definitely. And so if we go back to now talk about sort of Contentstack and significant business that you've built there, I know getting to where you are sort of like at the moment will have different, let's say, eras within that, you're 0 to 1 and you're 1 to 10, et cetera. Maybe you can just share some of the key lessons that you've learned and how you've been able to build, a successful company this time with Contentstack.
Yeah. So if we think back to the early days, like right before I spun out, we did have a handful of customers. A lot of them were doing much smaller use cases. And just to kind of set the stage for what Content Stack is, it's a digital experience platform, which consists of a content management system and then various other components that add on to making it more of a digital experience platform. So content management system traditionally is powering a website or a mobile app, any type of digital experience, even a billboard inside an arena or something to that effect, and it's the technology layer behind it. It's not the design of the front end. And so Content Stack essentially powers that for brands today like Asics and Callaway and Mattel and Alaska Airlines and Crocs and a lot of other companies that no one's ever heard of. But it's essentially helping brands that are trying to get away from the old way of connecting with their end users and audiences to a much more modern and new way, leveraging personalization, AI, cool experiences that are, dynamic. And sometimes you get the physical and the digital co-relating and coexisting. And when we started, it was really as a services company trying to solve a problem for many brands that were coming to us for services use cases. We were essentially implementing various website management systems before, and we found that they were getting stuck. Like they couldn't do what they wanted to do because the world had changed around them, and their audiences were expecting more personalized experiences, more dynamic experiences, mobile experiences. So omni-channel was a big driver. So we built this like really simple, at that time, just a form-based CMS that would allow you to change content in a mobile app. And in doing that, we essentially found that we were sitting on a product that was really needed in the market. And many brands were trying to figure out, how do I do omni-channel? How do I actually take forward this digital experience that I've built on the web that's pretty static and make it much more interesting? And so we started with smaller brands. And over time, we essentially learned that there was this credibility we were building. And now we've gotten to the point where Fortune 1000 brands see us. We're a leader in the market. And if you talk about 0 to 1, it was really like, how do you land your first 10 to 15 customers that believed in you and took kind of a chance? They were early adopters of new technology, to where we are today, which we would say is early mainstream adoption of the more modern approach to building digital experiences, which means when you're looking at like the two incumbents in the market that have been there for 30 years, we're still looked at as the third, but the most modern. And so when you're deciding to make a change in your organization, do you go with the most modern, cool, innovative, and interesting, or do you go with nobody ever gets fired for buying X? And so that's essentially what the journey's been like. And we believe that we're at a cusp where we're going to go onto the other side of that and become the mainstream leader, because we will be the modern and the best and the most innovative.
With like the Fortune 1000 sort of customers and therefore like selling to the enterprise, can you share anything about like maybe a story about you, and you don't have to name the particular name, like landing that first Fortune 1000, how long it took, what you needed to be able to, get that done, and maybe just share a bit of an insight there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the ones that really stands out to me, and I won't mention the name, but it's a large toy manufacturer. And they started with a use case that could not address their omni-channel needs, because they had an incumbent in seat that was powering most of their digital experiences. So they bought us specifically to do one small thing. And, that at this point was about a tenth of the contract size that it is today. When they did that, they found that it was so easy and they got so much value out of it so quickly that they immediately decided they wanted to bring that to the rest of their digital platform. And so over the last few years, we've moved away from them using something across all of their sites to going off of all of those things and moving into using Contentstack for everything. And so there has been a bit of a sort of land and expand situation in a lot of the larger companies because they do have a lot of legacy systems that they've invested in, that they've integrated with, that they've built other systems and processes around, and most importantly, that their people are comfortable with because that's what they've been using for a long time. And so there's this whole concept of like change management, which is one of the topics I'll be focused on at next week's conference. But it's sort of making a shift to buying something much more modern is more than just buying the technology. It's really thinking about how does this impact the entire business and how we work and how the people come, how people show up and how they shine. And all of that has to be taken into consideration when making a decision like this. So if you think about a Fortune 1000, it essentially is thinking about all of that in a holistic way, which is not an overnight decision. It's time consuming. It's thinking through the multiple stages of a rollout. It's a phased approach typically, and so the sales cycle can often be long. And we try to play a consultative role in helping them make that decision and thinking through the pros and cons and the challenges they're going to go through and not oversimplify it because it's not easy.
You touched on the topic, or one of the things you'll be speaking about at SaaStock USA next week. Can you share more about what the talk is and what you'll be covering, why people should be, attend this particular talk?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what I'm super passionate about, and what I've always been passionate about from the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, is seeing people being able to do their best work. And to me, that means that if you're making a big change inside an organization, you have to focus on the human side of change. And so, I'll be talking about how we as SaaS vendors typically forget about the importance of the human side of change in helping our customers to be successful. And essentially, what that means is you're making a technology decision, but really you're also making a people decision at the same time. And if you're not thinking about both, you're less likely to be successful with your technology decision. And just to give you an example of that, a brand that has invested in technology for 20 years, and I'll use Air France KLM because it's a public use case, and they just celebrated their success recently with Contentstack, and they were using two different really large content management systems, one at Air France and one at KLM, and they were under this mandate to bring the two together under one umbrella and under one CMS. And so they chose Contentstack to do that. If you think about the systems and processes and languages and tools and methodologies and cultures that have an impact on that, bringing them together under one umbrella, learning a new technology, also changing the process by which they do things, and then also making it consistent across two really large brands while the plane is still moving and people are still buying tickets and all that's still going is challenging. And they did that very methodically and spent time investing in the people and investing in their training and helping them to get excited about the journey so that everybody looked at it as like the other side of this is going to be a big celebration rather than this sucks, that's hard, this is difficult. It's more like we're learning, and we're going to win, And so it's really a lot of it is mindset, and a lot of it is having the right team, people, resources, partners to be successful in doing it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to the full talk. I'll be there for that. So thank you for obviously putting this together and sharing that at SaaStock. For those maybe that are listening who haven't been to Austin before, like what's a couple of insider like Austin tips, things that people must do? I know like barbecues are like an obvious one, but
Yes,
something non-barbecue.
everybody loves barbecue. I'm a vegetarian, so I will throw out the fact that the best thing to eat in Austin is a breakfast taco. You
Okay.
can't come to Austin and not have a breakfast taco.
Yeah.
And breakfast tacos can be had 24 hours a day, so you can have a breakfast taco for lunch and it's totally cool.
And very affordable as well.
Very affordable, and they're available at the airport, but they're also available like at every coffee shop and store in town. It's just like a culture here. And of course, live music. We're known for live music. Austin claims to be the live music capital of the world. And certain streets, if you walk down 6th Street, for example, which is codenamed Dirty Sixth because it
Yeah.
gets rowdy late at night, is every bar has some live music going on almost every night of the week. So it's a really fun place to
Yeah.
get some good music in.
Yeah, definitely. I think there certainly has been the influence in us choosing Austin for SaaStock in the fact that the city has good food, good culture, great people. I was going to say weird people, but it's part
We
of
pride
the
ourselves on weird.
part of the vibe there. Great music, like lots of nightlife, so lots of fun things to do, and getting 1,500 SaaS founders and their teams together in a fun city. I think it's a nice recipe for learning, lifting your head up, coming to the conference, meeting a lot of good people, listening to some great content, and continuing the fun in the evening while still doing some business, of course. And so, yeah, I'm very excited to come back, and glad the rain is today, not next week. As well.
Hopefully it'll clear up for y'all next
Yeah.
week and it'll be nice and green.
Yeah, fingers crossed. A couple of quick fire sort of questions for you before we wrap up. What's the best advice you've ever received?
I think that there's two, and I know rapid fire is only one, but I'm going to give you both. One is that you should not live your life asking for anything in return. You should live your life giving. And that's been really good for me. And I feel like my father taught me that, but I've also learned it from really successful people. And it's kind of the way I live my life. And then the other thing, which relates back to change management, is really, I don't know if you've seen the pep talk that Kara Lawson, the coach at Duke University's women's basketball team, gave. It's really good. It's on YouTube. It's that things never get easier. You just learn how to do hard better. And so do hard things. And that's something I use a lot when I talk to my team. Things are, if everybody could do, if it was easy, everybody could do it. But really doing things that are hard is where you learn resilience and grow.
Yeah, I love both of those. And actually, I was just thinking, as you said that, like, both in the context of my children. The first one, my 8-year-old, is all about receiving and not giving. And I am trying to coach that out a little bit. But and then my second one, she's currently studying for some tests in 4 months' time. And it's all very difficult. And, she's kind of at this sort of point of like, oh, I don't know if I want to do it and so on. And I'm just trying to build like a bit of resilience and that choose hard. And like, you're not expected to learn everything at the moment, but learning through failure and, mistakes, etc., and how she can get through that. So very pertinent in respect of the children, but also 100% in business as well.
I totally recommend you watch that video with both of them. They'll get something out of it.
Yeah, if you can
I'll forward it to you.
send it to me, that'd be amazing. Yeah. What about, given you've been a multiple sort of entrepreneur and a CEO, what is the hardest thing about being a CEO, being a founder?
The hardest thing is feeling like you might fail the people that have been loyal to you. So it's that sense of like the livelihood of your team and the people that are here and their families is riding on your shoulders. And I live with that burden every day.
How do you deal with it?
I work really hard. I give myself some grace when things don't work out the way I expect. And I just show gratitude as we go because, sometimes you won't get to the finish line you expected to, but showing gratitude along the way shows that the journey is worth it.
And lastly, favorite book on business, or maybe a favorite book that's relevant and has helped you towards business?
I'm now for the 4th time rereading Good to Great because every time I read it, I'm in a different stage of my journey and it means something totally different. And I'm focusing a lot on level 5 leadership and what it means going into the next stage of my company's journey. So that's a good one. It's a classic.
Yeah, no, it is a classic. Jim Collins, great. I think all of his books are amazing. And actually, what I probably should do more of is just reread the classics instead of buying the next new business book, because often a lot of what they say has already been said. But yeah, I need to do more of that. But it's a great book, and thanks for sharing that. Well, it's been great having you on the show, Neha, ahead of you coming to SaaStock USA and supporting with that and speaking there. And so I'm really excited to meet you in person and listen to your talk. Thank you so much for being on the SaaS Revolution show today. Neha Sampat, CEO of Contentstack.
Thank you, Alex. Looking forward to seeing you in Austin.
Yeah, likewise.